Welcome! This presentation will walk you through the Anne Arundel County Public Schools Gifted and Talented Identification process. As we begin thinking about gifted students today, the first question that comes to mind might be why? Why focus on bright, capable kids who will make it anyway? Let's stop to think about that for a moment using an analogous situation. Would you have an athlete compete without a coach? Would Peyton Manning be the quarterback that he is today without the specific guidance, coaching, or training that he was given? Would Michael Phelps be the Olympic swimmer he is today without the opportunity to learn or compete at an appropriate level? And finally, would Jack Andraka have come up with an early detection for cancer without mentors who nurtured his ability as a scientist and allowed him the opportunity to pursue his passion? Michael Clay Thompson, a former member of the Board of Directors for the National Association You may ask yourself, why do we need to identify students as gifted? We identify these children for several reasons. First, gifted students have different academic needs that extend beyond the typical general curriculum and instruction. Secondly, we have a state mandate to identify and serve gifted students. Lastly, and most importantly, we have a moral responsibility to do so. We must meet the needs of all students in our county, and as such, we must meet the needs of those who are gifted and advanced. Without support, nurturing, and access to advanced opportunities, these students will not fulfill their potential. Gifted students have unique academic needs that must be addressed through educational decisions regarding their curriculum, pacing, and the learning environment. As stated in the Annotated Code of Maryland, we must provide equitable access to rigor for all students based on their true, not perceived potential. That includes gifted students who are achieving at remarkably high levels and those who have demonstrated high ability but may or may not be achieving. Think again about the talented athlete. We certainly provide them with the best coaches, programs, and opportunities. We have the same responsibility in education to provide an optimal match between the learner, the curriculum, and the instruction. All students have the right to an appropriate education. Comar states that all students in Maryland schools must be provided with educational opportunities appropriate to their individual abilities, which will enable them to meet their maximum potential. In February 2012, the Maryland State Board of Education adopted a regulation affirmatively stating that gifted and talented students are found in all Maryland schools and in all cultural, ethnic, and economic groups. The regulation directs all Maryland school systems to identify gifted and talented students and to develop and implement the gifted and talented education programs and services needed to develop these students' full potential. A gifted and talented student, as defined by Maryland law, is an elementary or secondary student who is identified by professionally qualified individuals as having outstanding talent and performing or showing the potential for performing at remarkably high levels of accomplishment when compared to other students. Exhibiting high performance capability in intellectual, creative, or artistic areas. Possessing an unusual leadership capacity and or excelling in specific academic fields. In Anne Arundel County Public Schools, we identify students for advanced math and language arts instruction that begins in 3rd grade. The gifted and talented identification process begins with the broad screening of all students in grade 2 and those not previously identified in grade 5. In that effort, we are looking at multiple indicators of potential, aptitude, and achievement. The Cognitive Abilities Test will be administered to all second grade and fifth grade students who are not previously identified as gifted in both reading and math. Testing occurs in November and December. Second graders are also identified based on their Maryland State Department of Education Primary Talent Development portfolios and the Behavioral Continuum or REPI scale. Second graders obtaining a minimum threshold score will take the Performance Series assessments in reading and math in February. Schools and parents will be notified of the participants. Teacher rating scales will contribute to the process for fifth grade students. Parent rating scales and additional student data may also be considered. Fifth graders are not taking Performance Series this year. Instead, their fourth grade PARCC scores will be considered as an achievement measure for the identification process. The COGAT and Performance Series are nationally normed. However, Anne Arundel County Public Schools will use local norms to aid in the identification of gifted and advanced students across all student groups. We begin addressing the potential of all students using the Maryland State Department of Education Primary Talent Development Program. This program was designed to develop and nurture the potentials of all students, especially children who are from our underrepresented groups. The program emphasizes 3 essential strategies used in everyday life: analyzing attributes, questioning, creative problem solving, and develops the 7 thinking behaviors. The primary talent development targeted thinking behaviors can be indicative of potential and advanced learning capabilities. They can be applied across the disciplines and are behaviors that contribute to lifelong learning and success. They are the behaviors of the disciplines that experts in fields of business and STEM demonstrate regularly. We know that they are innate in all students and can be developed over time through a variety of experiences. The students' demonstration of these behaviors are documented in paper portfolios of individual student work that travel with them from pre-K to second grade. The complexity, intensity, and/or frequency of the behaviors are measured according to the developmental continuum of selected behaviors at the readiness, emergent, progressing, or independent level. The Cognitive Abilities Test provides a nonverbal reasoning score as well as verbal and quantitative reasoning scores. The verbal and quantitative scores provide additional information about students' abilities and can be used similarly to identify potential in reading and math and inform instruction. The nonverbal, verbal, and quantitative sections of the COGAT will be administered on 3 separate days during 3 separate weeks in November and December. Here you see an example from the nonverbal battery. It contains 3 subtests: figure matrices, which requires students to reason by analogy with figures as shown here; paper folding, which requires students to visualize a change that occurs when a paper is folded and what the result will be when the paper is unfolded. It also requires logical thinking. Figure classification, which requires students to find a relationship among 3 objects and then determine how a 4th object is like the others in the same way. Students determine the rule that classifies the object. Each problem has a new rule, making the problem novel. The verbal reasoning battery of the COGAT contains analogies, sentence completion, and classification subtests. The Grade 2 battery is picture-based. The Grade 5 battery is word-based. Look at the example. Think about how the first 2 pictures are like each other in the top row. When you think you know, look at the picture in the bottom row of the big box. One answer should go with this picture. Which picture belongs in the empty box? The apples in the bowl is the correct answer. This is an example of a picture analogy. Analogies require students to reason by finding relationships. Successful learners habitually reason by analogy. It requires them to be perceptive to similarities and apply similar relationships to new situations. The sentence completion subtest requires students in Grade 2 to listen to a question read by the test administrator and to select the picture that answers the question. The questions are written out for Grade 5 students to read. This subtest can be omitted or not scored for students who are bilingual and do not speak English or Spanish. The last verbal subtest, classification, requires students to find a relationship among 3 objects and then determine a fourth object that is like the others in the same way. Students must make inferences and determine the correct answer. Making inferences is essential to reading comprehension, learning new words, and advanced math problem-solving skills. Again, this battery uses pictures for grade 2 as you've seen. The grade 5 version of the COGAT contains words, not pictures. The quantitative reasoning battery contains number analogies, number puzzles, and number series. Number analogies require students to reason by finding relationships. It requires them to be perceptive to similarities and apply similar relationships to new situations. Discovering quantitative relationships is the core to understanding mathematics. Number puzzles require students to solve equations with an unknown. It measures their understanding of mathematical identities. Finally, the number series subtests require students to infer patterns and to determine the next logical sequence. The quantitative reasoning battery for grade 2 uses pictures, numbers, and symbols as you've seen. The grade 5 version of the COGAT contains numbers and symbols for this battery. In addition to the COGAT, selected or qualifying second grade students will take the Performance Series assessment, which measures achievement in reading and math. Performance Series is an online standards-based testing tool that focuses on placement and gains for students according to state and national standards, including the Common Core state standards. It relies upon item response theory calibration, meaning that questions become harder or easier as the student answers correctly or incorrectly. It will provide national percentile rankings for each child to show how a student performs on a test compared to a nationally normed sample. Students only take the reading and mathematics assessments. They do not take the algebra or reading foundations assessments. Fifth graders will not take Performance Series. Their fourth grade PARCC scores will be used as an achievement measure for identification purposes. Fifth grade teachers will complete the reading and math sections of the scales for rating the behavioral characteristics of superior students for students who are not previously identified as gifted. Because second graders have the MSDE Primary Talent Development portfolios, which document characteristics of advanced learners, they do not need to complete the rating scales. Parents also have the opportunity to complete the learning and motivation sections of the scales, if necessary. This is not required for every student and will only be completed as needed on an individual basis. The 2017-18 assessment timeline is shown here and can also be found on the district's assessment calendar. Weather or unforeseen events may alter these dates. Parents will be kept apprised of their child's gifted and talented testing results throughout the year via home reports and letters. COGAT home reports will be distributed in January or February. Once testing is complete, schools receive the final results from the Instructional Data Division and/or the Advanced Learner Programs Office. Letters will be sent home to parents informing them of their child's identification results and placement for language arts and math in April for grade 5 and June for grade 2. Parents may appeal the Gifted and Talented Identification Process Decision. Initial appeals of a GT identification process decision must be presented in writing to the coordinator of Pre-K to 12 Advanced Learning, Division of Advanced Studies and Programs. The coordinator will review the appeal in collaboration with the school principal. The appeal must clearly articulate a basis for overturning the GT identification process decision. After review, a further appeal may be made in writing to the Assistant Superintendent of Advanced Studies and Programs, with a copy to the school principal and the coordinator of Pre-K to 12 Advanced Learning. Actions may include, but are not limited to, inclusion of an additional screening assessment, participation by the student in the single subject trail class or classes in an area of strength for a trial period of time, further review of student data by the local school in conjunction with the Advanced Studies and Programs officials. Following a decision by the Assistant Superintendent of Advanced Studies and Programs, the parent will be contacted in writing with the results of the appeal. The decisions of the Assistant Superintendent of Advanced Studies and Programs are final. The Advanced Learner Programs, or ALPS, is designed to engage all students in the learning and application of concepts and skills at levels of greater depth and complexity. ALPS is designed to provide all students with increased opportunities for advanced instruction and provide gifted and advanced learners with daily instruction and curriculum designed specifically for highly advanced learners. Gifted and talented students, as well as advanced students, participate in single subject trails for reading and/or math. These students receive at least an hour of advanced instruction per day in that content area. Within the Reading and Language Arts Trail, teachers utilize the William & Mary program, which is a research-based approach that focuses on analytic and interpretive skills in literature, persuasive writing skills, linguistic competency, listening and oral communication skills, reasoning skills, and understanding an overarching concept of change. The William & Mary units engage students in exploring challenging works of literature from various times, cultures, and genres, and encourages students to reflect on their readings through writing and discussion. The units also provide opportunities for students to explore interdisciplinary connections and conduct research around issues relevant to their own lives. Students will also participate in concept-based literature circles. During this time, students may be reading different novels, but will utilize a concept as a way to discuss, comprehend literature, and extend their learning. Students who demonstrate readiness for advanced study in mathematics receive compacted instruction of on-grade level standards based on pre-assessment results, followed by the full implementation of M-Cubed, or Mentoring Mathematical Minds, a mathematics curriculum designed specifically for advanced learners that promotes discourse, emphasizes critical thinking, creative problem solving, and discussion about mathematics and real-world applications. Overall, students will engage in the learning and application of concepts and skills at levels of greater depth and complexity. The single subject trail population consists of approximately 25% of students per grade level in 3rd through 5th grades. Of this 25% of students, typically 5% are identified as gifted. This determination is based on the multiple measures we've explored and local norms for each grade level and student groups. Schools may choose to add students who are not identified as gifted or advanced to the single subject trails if it is an appropriate placement. However, removing identified gifted students is not recommended. Differentiated instruction must be provided for gifted and advanced students to meet their individual needs within the single subject trail. ALPS, math, or language arts resource teachers are available for single subject trail curriculum planning, differentiated instruction support, or professional development. They can also help teachers plan more rigorous instruction for students who are participating in the core curricular learning tasks. The Differentiated Advanced Learning Initiative, or DALI, is the new advanced learning opportunity for gifted 6th grade students in middle school. Gifted students will participate in curriculum extensions that are embedded in the Advanced Language Arts 6 and the Math 6-7 accelerated classes. The focus of implementation will be through differentiated instruction and flexible grouping. You may also contact Ainsley Tatro or Don Counts. Thank you for viewing this informational presentation.